Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Betsperts Golf DFS with myself, Byron Lindeque, and my main man, Ryan Klos. How are you doing, sir?
Doing well. Excited for the stretch run here, the last cut event of the season. Just kind of looking things over, getting ready for the show. A lot of the depth, for this first playoff round is kind of missing with all those live players gone. It's kind of watered down that lower range. So really looking forward to seeing who you like down there. But I love this course. There's so many challenging aspects to it, but not in a major course type of way. There's lots of water. Good shots are going to be rewarded. Double bogeys are going to happen. So pretty much a ball striking paradise. And so really looking forward to digging in here.
Yep, we got the FedEx St. Jude down in Memphis, Tennessee, where they'll be playing there, and it's a fun golf course. It's like you said, there's tons of water. It's going to provide a lot of entertainment. It's going to provide some fantastic results. We've got some definite pedigree guys that look to contend, but we'll see if they can navigate the booby traps that are scattered throughout the course, which is always going to be fun. And it's going to be quite interesting because the last three editions of this golf course has been a WGC event, which is the elites of the elites with no cut events. And then the previous editions were some guys that played in just a classic. So taking some course history into account is also an interesting, angle here, and it's fun to differentiate between the different levels of competition that these guys played in over the last 5-6 years. And I don't know, the course history at this venue doesn't seem to be that predictive of success. There are other courses that are less predictive, and there's other courses that are way more predictive. I think it kind of just falls right in the middle there for me. But as you guys can tell, I've got the $100 shirt on today, which means that we had a Tom Kim cash last week, which is always exciting for me on my side of things. And hopefully we can get another one this week, right? We're going to pick a winner in the DFS, and it's going to be an outright. So it's going to be a good week for us, I think.
Yeah, just kind of looking at, this field as far as, this being the very first playoff. Of course, this was the Northern Trust last year. But there's just a lot of win equity kind of clustered in the top end here. You have really big names who have won this first round. When you look at, Finau, DJ won it twice, Patrick Reed won twice, DeChambeau, Jason Day. So, yeah, it's interesting here to kind of, as we get through the top level of the field here, just kind of parsing through those names. And, you're gonna have to cross a lot of names out, and that's going to be tough. So I think strategy is going to be really big this week, and we'll get into that as we go here.
Absolutely. Yeah. We've got 7 guys at the top of the board in the 10K range, which is more than we have in the 9K, which is kind of a little arb. It's not typically you to see that kind of stuff. But I think before we get into the DFS state, we have to remind people that are watching, we've got that $1 per month subscription to the Betsperts website with all the articles, with all the tools. Ron's got his search tool out there that's still being refined, and it's pretty badass. You can search by region, which is really, really cool. So if you got certain, if you want to really nerd out in that department, you can do that. And then there's obviously all the articles that are available there too, and the other original tools. So I miss anything there, Ron?
Yeah, and congrats to DJ Cleary, who won $250,000 last week. And so he had a big week using
That's
a lot
of $250,000.
Yep, a lot of stuff we have on our site.
Yeah.
And really a big thing is the Discord. When you can get on there and, whether it's myself, Byron, Brian Noonan, we're all on there. If anyone has questions, we're going over our picks there. We're going over strategy, and a lot of charts are posted there. A lot of stuff that I don't put on Twitter, I'm putting there on the Discord. So really a lot of good information to jump in there. And just $1 a month will take you through the rest of the swing season, through the rest of the year. So.
And then you put out some good information on Twitter already, Ron. So, the people out there, it's totally worth a buck if you want to do that. So, yeah, have you got any cool player quotes for us this week that's going to help us dissect this course, or what are we looking at?
Yeah, one of the big things, like when you look at the rough, and I think that's kind of one of the biggest things is, you look and people see, well, it's only 2.5 inches. But Bermuda rough is and having lived in Texas for a while, having played in that rough, it wraps itself around the ball. And, John Rahm talks about this, where, a lot of, actually, when I go through the player quotes literally almost every single guy comes back to the rough, and how important it is to be in the fairway. And so, Rom, for example, says, hitting into the rough is not the best option. You get flyers, which is one of the problems with the rough. Sometimes it's going to go over the green. And then sometimes with the ball sitting low, you're going to hit kind of these low tumbling shots that are going to end up short. And, it's really hard to get spin. And when you have all these water hazards in play, especially on approach, players are going to have to make a choice here. Are they going to lay up, kind of play it safe, more conservative, or are they still going to go for the green? And so, when we start getting into some of these guys who are a little wild off the tee, I think you really have to take that into account here is, there's the potential for some really big numbers here. And so, even Daniel Berger, who's won here twice, he says you have to hit in the fairway. Otherwise, it's going to be difficult to get it close to the hole. As the week goes on, it gets firmer and faster here. And, they are kind of in drought conditions in Memphis. They have not had much rain. And so, when you're talking about even just the fairways being firm, balls are going to roll into the rough. Obviously, these are the fourth smallest greens on tour, only 4,300 square feet on average. So, it's going to be really hard to hold greens. And so I think some people are underestimating scrambling and around the green play. I think that's going to be huge this week. But yeah, we'll get into some of those players who, kind of fit that mold. But yeah, even the numbers, when you look at greens in regulation, from the fairway, it's 75%. From the rough, it's only 42%. That's one of the biggest drops on the whole tour.
Wow.
And so, you can go down the list from proximity, birdie or better percentage, just infinitely easier to get that ball close to the hole and to have birdie chances if you are playing from the fairway.
Yeah, I think we saw that last week where if even 2.5 inches, and if there's a bit of rain, I know you said they're in a bit of a drought right now, but if there's some rain and they let that grass grow throughout the week, so by Sunday it's pushing 3.5, and you can tell the moment they miss the fairway, you can see on the guys' faces like now I'm fighting to make par instead of attacking a birdie, because the differentiation, like you said, there is magnificent when it comes to Bermuda grass, even though it's not that thick Bay Hill grass that you see, but it's penal. So you got to make sure, and I've got that in my model too. I'm really, really big on driving accuracy, good drives gained, that kind of stuff this week. And then there's proximity ranges that I'm a big fan of, and 65% of shots will come from 125 to 200 this week, which is basically 2/3 of the shots. So I'm really focusing on that range this week, which is very similar to last week. So we could see a lot of same guys popping up. They're still putting on Bermuda grass, which is also last week's event. So lots of interesting things. So without further ado, let's get into this massive 10K range. Got Rory at the top at 11K, Scotty, Xander, Cameron Smith, Patrick Cantley, Justin Thomas, and John Rahm rounding out the bottom of the 10K range, 7th in the DFS slate. There's some interesting guys going on here. You're going to have to fade a few. You can't play all of these dudes at the top, even though every single one of them has the potential to win this event. Obviously, I'm a big Cam Smith guy. I'll see how his ownership plays out throughout the week, but he's number one in my model. And it's mainly got to do with the fact that he is a really, really good, accurate approach player from that proximity range. And then his putting on Bermuda grass is just phenomenal. I think he has multiple avenues to get into the winner's circle yet again for the 4th time this year. And we saw he got a new driver while he was over in Europe, and it's been working wonders for him. He's gained off the tee in 7 of his last 8 rounds. And he's hitting a cut off the tee now. He's not even hitting a draw anymore, which I think has really impacted his approach play. So hopefully over the last little while, he's really got his approach back to how it's been all year. And if he can just continue to play the kind of golf he's been doing, I'm going to go big time on Cam. I might even go 100% because it might be the last time we get a chance to bet him and play him. So I'm kind of a bit of a sentimental situation there, but there's a lot of other guys that I'm sure you've got your eye on too, Ron. What you thinking?
Yeah, just to take a step back really quick, like even just my overall strategy this week is, you got so many guys with win equity at the top end of the board here. And so what I'm trying to do is maximize that win equity. Like I'm trying to probably get at least 3 golfers in each lineup that I think have really high equity to win, have a legitimate chance. And even just as we get lower, even in the 8 and 9K range, like even if I think you can go as low as Sungjae Im at 8.5 and work your way up. And Burns, Morikawa, Hovland, those guys are all 9K and lower. So, I think there's different ways to go here, like usual, where, if you're not as excited about the very top, like I'm not this week, I think you can make a living down here in that 8, 9K range as far as win equity goes. But yeah, if we're looking at the top here, for me, I don't think you can look past Rory. I mean, just when you take everything into account, whether it's course history, whether it's recent form, whether it's how motivated he seems to be with all the lift stuff going on. He's got the strongest tee to green game in this field, and he's kind of turned into a top 10 putter recently. When you look at the last 8 events he's been in, he's gained 98 strokes on the field in just 8 events. Like, that's a mind-boggling number. And so, he's had success here. He's gained over 1.5 strokes in the 20 rounds he's played here at TPC Southwind. So, I just think he's got to be one of your cornerstone plays, at least in my opinion. He's one of mine. It's also interesting, like, when you look at this top group, like, other than Patrick Cantlay, who played a couple weeks ago, most of these guys have been off for like around a month. And so, I know we had a little discussion on that too. How much effect do you weigh that at all? And yeah, I think we kind of agree. These guys, like John Rahm, he's taking it seriously. These guys are practicing, there's no doubt. So I'm not going to factor in it as much, but it is interesting to note, maybe a little bit of rust. So what do you think about that?
Yeah. So my approach to this kind of situation is, if this is where a baseline, a long period of sustained statistical analysis really comes into play, where if you've got a guy that's been hitting his irons well for a good period of time, that can really, really be beneficial, because that he's most likely going to be returning in that same vein of form. Whereas there's certain guys that may have found something in the last 2 or 3 events that momentum isn't going to continue a month later. So it's if you have a toss up between 2 guys, kind of just roll with a guy that has shown that track record and go from there. And then on the flip side, if you have someone that's been playing badly for the last 2 or 3 weeks before that month off, go right back to him if he has a good baseline of a good track record there, because he's been practicing, he's probably rectified whatever was going wrong. So I really do like that, especially from like Cam Smith's approach play. I think he's going to be having ground away at that, and he's hungry as hell. So I like it, and it can really help navigate your way through the slate. So
yeah, and I think John Rahm, for me, he kind of fits into that, like we talked about. He's a guy who, there's been a lot of chatter. He hasn't looked himself. But look, he still leads the tour and off the tee. He still leads the tour in total driving, which is one of the stats I'm weighing pretty heavily this week, because yes, accuracy matters, but some of these holes with the dog legs, players have kind of started over even last year at this course. The driving distance was the highest it's ever been at 296 yards. And so, as guys continue to get stronger, they're taking angles, over the dog legs. And so, I think, a guy like Rahm, who can add distance along with the accuracy. And yeah, I'm just kind of, his ownership looks like it's going to be, at least right now, kind of on the lower end. And so, I think this is a really good, almost buy low spot for Rahm. Cam Smith, again, he's a guy, just because you brought him up, there's really nothing not to like about him except the off the tee stuff. And so, I just kind of, even longer term, and maybe he's fixed some things. That would be, and again, we're getting really picky here, but just that poor driving accuracy is kind of the main thing that has me crossing him off. Scotty Scheffler, putting struggles, again, is that going to continue this week? Who knows? But, I think when you're trying to cross names off here, those are kind of little things I'm looking for. Even Patrick Cantlay, it's really hard to ignore the current run he's on. He's got 4 top 8s in his last 6 events, but, Bermuda is his worst surface. He does have a kind of lower driving accuracy numbers on these tighter courses. So, it's really hard, but for me on top here, it's Rory. And then I'm going down to JT and Rahm. JT obviously won here in 2020. He's actually the only former winner in this field, because all the other winners are, believe it or not, on the LIV Tour, who have won,
wow,
at this course recently.
That's wild.
So, yeah, but a lot of the comp courses, whether it's Sawgrass, Innisbrook, Eastlake, JT has really good numbers on those courses. And so he's another one I do worry about off the tee because he does spray it a bit. But, I think he's just at 10-2. I think he's really good value. And I think him and Rahm and Rory are my top three guys from this range.
Cool. I think, so you got those top three. I think I'm going to go with Rory, Scotty, and Cam as my top three guys for this. And just to get back to Scotty while we wrap up this 10K, he's been putting really badly the last 10 rounds or so, but it hasn't been on Bermuda. Now he's coming back to a Bermuda surface that I think he's played like 17 rounds on Bermuda this year and lost in only 3 of them. So and that was in the beginning of the year when his putting was on fire. So I don't know if that's got to do with his form or if that's got to do with the surface he was on, but he's coming back to a surface he's played very well on. So I'm kind of taking that angle and hoping that he can putt well on there. And then Rory McIlroy has gained a stroke on average, a stroke off the tee at this venue per round, which is insane. When you think about accuracy mattering the most, I think if you're looking for certain guys like Rory and John Rahm and, Sam Burns even, who can hit it a long way, like you said, that accuracy is kind of nullified if you're hitting a wedge out of that rough versus an 8-iron or a 7-iron. So it's a definite avenue to pursue. If you want to change your model settings a little bit, get the accuracy out of there and just go straight up off the tee numbers, you can always take that approach as well. So, I think we've really done a good job of figuring out, different avenues that you can pursue here at the top. Each guy's got, fantastic upside, obviously. So you got to pick your poison and just kind of eat it. Next up, we got Matty Fitz at the top of the 9K range at $9,800. Tony Finau, Will Zalatoris, Cameron Young, Jordan Spieth, and Victor Hovland rounds out at the bottom of the 9K range at 9 flat. The two guys that are looking to be the chalkiest at the top here are Tony and Will. I think Will Zalatoris is going to be a very, very popular play. He played very well here last year. I think a lot of that relied on a good putter. So we'll see if he can repeat that putting performance, because I'm not necessarily super sold on his, I don't know. If I'm going to fade someone that's chalky in this range, it's probably going to be Will over Tony. So I just think Tony's been putting magnificently lately, which has always been a big concern for him. And yes, he does go back to Bermuda, which is a catastrophe when he putts on Bermuda, but he's been playing so well. And I think his ball striking is just so superior right now. It's phenomenal to watch. So what are your thoughts there on those guys?
So Finau's a fade for me. And it's not just because, the typical, he's won, 2 in a row, he's definitely not going to win it. It's not that. It's kind of what you said. I worry about the putting. I worry about ownership probably more than anything. I think people are going to see the name, and, I think there's just so many good plays around him that I don't think you have to take that chance this week. Matt Fitzpatrick is someone I really love. He's got 2 really high finishes here where he finished 4th and 6th. And one of the quotes that I read from him, he basically says that, and this was from last year before the event, he said, "I think I figured out how to play this golf course. You need to hit fairways, you need to hit greens. It sounds very obvious, but I played a lot of places where you don't need to do that and you can still score. So here it's a great golf course. You've got to think your way around. You've got to be committed to the right shots." And so when a player talks about a certain course like that, I do pay a little bit more attention, and the results kind of back that up. And of course, if you're just looking at his numbers, like, he's leading the field in tee to green. He's one of the most creative players around the green. We know how good he can putt, which, believe it or not, has been his main weakness recently. Yeah. Bermuda is actually his best surface.
Yes.
He's sixth in total driving. He's 7th in my off the tee model. And I just think he's a perfect course fit here. Even if you want to get into the whole water ball, staying out of trouble, he's 3rd in the field in bogey avoidance. Of course, he's known for getting pars, but he's kind of, as we've seen, added more distance off the tee. And so just from the total driving perspective, I think weighing all those things together, I think he's a fabulous play at 9,800. For me, I'm on the flip side with you with Zalatoris. I think, and there's been a lot of people online saying this is his week. And I actually do think, just when you look at every angle, top 5 approach player in the field. And this is really where I think, as opposed to perhaps Detroit, Sedgefield, where he kind of struggled from time to time. Not struggled, but he didn't run away with anything. I think this is a course where his stellar ball striking can really separate him from other people. And when we get down to Morikawa, I think that's another kind of thing I like about him. And so, he's proven to be a big game hunter. When you get him into these strong field events, something just turns on for him. And so, the caddy angle, Brian Mull, he's a former caddy on tour, he's kind of got some insight into the situation. Apparently with Ryan Goble, his former caddy, there's, everything kind of started at the Open, and, he kind of thinks this is going to be a really good change for him. And, we've seen that before where guys change caddies or things change and, they kind of, for whatever reason, something clicks there. So I think the biggest thing for Will is he's hungry. He's really hungry to get that first win. And so kind of when you add up all those ingredients together, I just think the recipe is there for a very strong week for him. But yeah, so I'm kind of going Fitz and Zal without Fino when we're looking at that top half of the 9K range.
Cool. Yeah. And then that's completely fine. I can totally see you got to pick your poison. You got to pick your battles. There's so many good guys in this field. There's going to be a lot of pivot options. But also at the same time, the reason someone's chalky is because things set up well for them, right? He's up there, the ball striking, like I said, with Rory and Rahm. How could I leave Will Zalatoris out of that frame as well? The guy's got immense distance with reasonably good accuracy for as far as he hits it. So he can definitely pursue that avenue down there and just bomb it away and keep it in play-ish and still hit wedges into these greens. So I love that. And we've seen, I think, -16, -11, -16 have been the last 3 winning totals over here, which isn't up in that 18, 20 range, which I think Will struggles to maybe get to at times. Maybe there's kind of a, especially with it being so dry, I think that's going to maybe help lower those scores and make it even more majory, like we know Will Zalatoris likes to do. And we never really spoke too much about Cam Young, Jordan Spieth, or Victor Hovland. All 3 guys have their own baggage. Jordan's putting, Victor's around the green game, and then Cameron Young, just who knows what you're going to get from him. I think that's also the interesting part with Cam Young is he's such a talent, an immense talent, but if you're looking at the model thing, nothing really sticks out apart from his off the tee game, which can be nullified here, but also maybe not. So keep an eye on the ownership there. There's definitely some pivot plays. He's obviously shown he's also one of those big game hunters. He's shown up in a lot of the majors. And when it comes to difficult golf courses, he tends to shine. And he's also shown at the Genesis, he can go very, very low. So he can do it all. But yeah, I'm kind of leaning towards Cam, towards the bottom. I don't want anything to do with Jordan Spieth's putter. I don't know what's going on there until it gets better. I'm not going to keep going back to that well. I'm not going to keep hoping it gets better once, but it has started trending in that right direction. Anyway, that's my thoughts on the bottom of that range over there. And then we've got Colin Morikawa, who's going to be a fun discussion. Sam Burns, $8,600. Sungjae Im, $8,500. Hideki, Shane Lowry, Billy Horschel, and Joaquin Niemann. And then Tom Kim rounding out the 8K range. Tom Kim. So there's some interesting names here, Colin being one of them, Sam Burns being another who has fantastic course history at this venue. Hideki, for me, is never, ever going to see the light of day in a DFS lineup or a betting card. I just cannot deal with his nonsense anymore. I'm done. So, Ron, either convince me to put Hideki back in the pool or we're both going to just hate the guy forever.
So, yeah, we talked about him before, but I think from a betting perspective, like when that number is sitting at 55 to 1, I don't mind a sprinkle on that. But yeah, from a DFS perspective, I'm with you. I'm not touching him here. Going back up though, like this is the range when you start with Cameron Young at 9,300 down to Sungjae at 85. Like every single one of these players, I can make a strong case for. Probably along with kind of with you, with Spieth would be the one probably least excited about, just because of kind of what you said. the putting issues. But again, watching ownership, we'll see what happens. He could be the contrarian play here. You never know. He does have 2 top 12s, at this course. But, I think I'm going to be pretty strong in this range. Related to Cameron Young, I mean, when you have 4 runner-ups and then a couple of thirds, and he's a rookie, so course history has not been a factor in any of his success. He's never seen these courses before. Even if you want to get into the angle, well, fairways are tighter here. Maybe he can be a little bit wild off the tee, but then you look and he finished 3rd at Harbortown, which is one of the tightest driving courses on tour. So I just don't think you can underestimate him. I will be very heavy on Cameron Young this week. He's a really good par 4 scorer. Of course, this is a par 70 course, so you have 2 extra par 4s here. Bermuda. I was expecting. He's from New York, expecting to see bentgrass as maybe his best surface, but Bermuda has been far and away his best putting surface. And of course, there's not a ton of sample size yet, but I just think at 9,300 for a guy who has competed in majors, he's competed in the minor events. For me, he's a no-brainer play. I do love Victor Hovland. Yeah,
for sure.
I do love Hovland. I mean, he said this is one of his favorite courses. Another guy who's just really strong if you're looking at ball striking, which, again, for me, I do think the around the green play is going to be important this week. But again, I'm willing to take the chance on a guy. When you have greens this small, he's going to be hitting them more than other people. And so kind of looking at that angle where hopefully the around the green play doesn't come into effect as much for him. He was 4th at the Open recently. So, just kind of hoping that he's going to continue to improve in that area. But yeah, Morikawa was a guy when those betting odds came at, 3,500, of course, kind of looking at his price, he has not been this cheap, 8,700 since he won the PGA Championship 2 years ago. So I think this is a really great buy low spot for him at 8,700. And then if you keep going here, like Sam Burns, people are down on him because of his recent form. But if you look at last year, so the only thing he did in the 6 weeks prior to this event last year, where he finished 2nd, by the way, he was 76 in the Scottish Open last year. And that's really the only event he played in 6 weeks prior. Now, he's played in a few more events leading up to this one, but kind of in a similar fashion, he has not been playing well. So I think he has the ability, especially with a Bermuda course. Of course, Bermuda Burns here. He's got 3 wins on Bermuda courses. He's the 6th best Bermuda putter in this field in my model. So I just think at 8,600, just with the amount of win equity he has, he's a great building block. Will probably be one of my core plays this week. And again, Sungjae, how can you look past what he's done? I mean, back-to-back second-place finishes, another guy who loves Bermuda. His fade off the tee kind of fits here. Again, this is a course where, a lot of players have been quoted talking about a fade is the best type of ball flight off the tee. So, yeah, it's this range from, 8,500 to 9,500 is going to be hard for me to separate guys. And this is where, as we get lower here, we'll kind of talk about, players to combine with players from up here. So, I'm off Matsuyama, though. I don't like Lowry. I can make a case for Horschel and Neiman, but those would be kind of my only 2 guys in this range as we get lower.
Yeah, I think Billy, Neiman, and Kim at the bottom of that range are going to be very intriguing plays for me because they're cheaper than the top of the range there, and they're not looking like they're going to be as owned. We know what Billy can do on courses that you have to hit it. He's very accurate off the tee, actually. And it's just his approach play has been rather substandard lately, which, I don't know if that's going to impact him or not, but he's got a really good course history here. So if he can, bounce back there, if you can get Billy Horschel at $8,200 under 10% owned somehow, that would be ideal. And then Tom Kim, a very, very interesting situation because
do you buy into the whole 7 weeks in a row? Do you buy into any of that? And he's a young guy.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Okay.
It's going to be, I think it's eighth event in a row that he's going to be playing in now. And he's 20 years old. So you have to remember that, when I was 17 or whatever, I'd just go and play and play and play and play. And I could do it for as long as you want. But he's just also won this event, which can really take you away from your process. You can get all his media obligations, things like that. But I think he's young. I think he's spontaneous. He's a very, happy-go-lucky kind of a guy. Obviously, he made a quad to start off his round, so he can overcome adversity. And I think he's just feeling himself. I've got an outright on him again this week. I've got a top 20 on him, so I guess I'm going to go in on him, especially if he's going to be towards the bottom end of the teens. I think he's going to be a really interesting play. He's got fantastic upside. He's super accurate off the tee. He's one of the most accurate guys on tour. Has been a small sample size, but he is hyper accurate, and I love that about it. Just sets up the rest of your hole so well if you in the fairway. It avoids catastrophes. That quad came from the rough, but that was a whole nother situation. But I really like Tom Kim. I think he's going to keep firing away. Ride that train till it's hot, I think. So Anyway, let's go down into the 7K, which is going to be, it's got my full computer screen covered. Yeah, we got Max Homa and Russell Henley at the top with Tyrrell Hatton and Aaron Wise to start off the top of this range. And then we kind of get to Keegan Bradley, Christian Bezuidenhout, Mito Pereira, and some Adams. I just said Adam Scott. So let's do the top of the 7K range real quick, Ron, and then we'll dive into the bottom of it. And there's only 125 guys in this field. So you have to also remember that's about 30 players less than a typical field. And that's going to be reflected in the ownership because people have to click a guy more just because there's less names to choose from. And especially in a field that's so heavily weighted, it's going to be tough for people to go to guys in the 6K range because how are they going to compete against all of these thoroughbreds that are at the top of the board, which definitely gives you an opportunity to be different. So I'm a big Russell Henley fan. I got him for an outright, but also that ownership is starting to creep up there again, rightfully so. I mean, he's iron play. Him and Tom Hoge lead the field over the last 8 rounds coming into this tournament in strokes gained approach. So they are both two guys that haven't necessarily been playing that well lately that are firing on all cylinders when it comes to ball striking, which, Russell Henley is going to be a fantastic player at this course. He's super accurate off the tee, and he putts better on Bermuda too. It's one of his better surfaces as well, which 15% ownership for a guy that's $7,800 is kind of spendy. So what are your thoughts there on Russell Henley? We got Max Homa just above him. Maybe that's going to be a good pivot. He hasn't necessarily been showing that much life lately, but we know what he is capable of. So yeah, Ron, what are you thinking? Yeah, in the 7K, I think it's going to be an important range if you especially go heavy at the top.
I think Homa is the most interesting conundrum for me for just kind of looking at it from this perspective. So when you look at the price, 7,900, I think he's vastly underpriced here again. Like the guy has done nothing but go out week after week. I forget what he's ranked in the world, but I think he's 20th in the world right now. And I followed him around in Detroit, and let me tell you, he's a great guy. Like what I love about him is how competitive he is. Like he gets so upset, and you can tell just that competitive fire when he hits a bad shot. And then once he's coming off the green, he's actually signing balls for kids and giving them. I mean, and so just that mix of competitive fire combined with just being so fan friendly, I'm a fan for life for Homa, but when you look at the numbers, like he has 5 starts here. He has never finished inside the top 50. But then you look and you say the flip side. Well, he's one of those guys who over the past year and a half has made more improvement in his game than anybody. So, that's just an interesting thing for me. Does he not like the course? Is it not a fit for some reason? Or are we going to trust his recent form and that this is just another example of a course where he's going to kind of turn the corner here and he's going to have a high week. So I don't know if you have any thoughts from that perspective, and then I'll get more into some other guys.
Yeah, just keep rolling with some of your guys. I want to look at Max's.
Okay.
Like, when did he play last? Because I think this might be a perfect opportunity for someone that hasn't necessarily been playing that good recently to have that time off and bounce back to what he was before.
Yeah. So he played in Detroit. He played a couple weeks ago, and
Okay.
He was decent. He struggled at times, putting for sure. But yeah, so just kind of as I go down here. So I like Russell Henley a lot. It was just so hard to watch him putting. I swear on Sunday he missed at least 4 or 5. I mean, we're talking 6 or 7 footers here. Now on the flip side, he does have Andy Sanders on the back for him, who's known for being an excellent greens reader, and so taking that into account, you're just kind of hoping with him that if he can just, and the shocking thing is he used to be such a good putter on Bermuda, like, and it is his best surface. But when you go up and look at Russell Henley's putting numbers from 5 years ago, like he was one of the best putters as far as Bermuda in the whole tour. And it's just kind of hard to explain, how guys tend to struggle through periods of time. But yeah, I mean, he's got 2 straight top tens, and he's a guy. And this is another thing with Henley. Zalatoris fits this. They've both played the last 2 events. So they're warmed up here. They're ready to go. They know exactly what they've needed to work on coming into this event. And, I really like that about those 2 guys. He's gained 21 strokes tee to green over these last 2 events. So, yeah, if you're looking at ball striking approach, there's none better than Russell Henley. Tyrrell Hatton is very interesting here just because he's trending up. And when he kind of gets in these kind of streaky, I don't know how you want to say it here, but when you look at he's 8th, 11th, 24th in his last 3, he's a guy like Cam Smith. He's almost like a mini Cam Smith for me. He's really good putting. He's really good recently on approach. But again, can you trust Haddon off the tee? And so that's my biggest question mark with him. And then another guy I'll mention here is Aaron Wise. Excellent sign for him because he lost strokes on approach at Sedgefield last week. But he's gained putting 5 of his last 7. So, I mean, his stroke looks so pure with kind of his new putting form. I just think if he can put it together here like he usually does on approach, like he's top 30 in the field in good drive percentage, he's really good around the green. And so I think Wise is a guy who, once he turns everything on at the same time, I think you're going to see him even in a strong field like this. And believe it or not, he actually plays better in these strong field events. So I think he's a great play. And then the last guy I'll mention in this range, Corey Connors, I love this week. Again, the putter, we saw that fail him again last week. But if you look, he gained 5.1 strokes total on Saturday and Sunday at Sedgefield last week. Again, one of the best approach players in the game. He's 2nd in the entire field in good drive percentage. And he does play best on Bermuda. So I think, again, 7,600 is just way too low for Connors. We've seen what he can do in majors. Again, this is another strong field event. I think he's going to rise to the top here again this week.
Yeah, he's a superior ball strike. He's one of the best out there, and I think he really showed that over the weekend. And I think also, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but they're both Bermuda green surfaces, but last week was a lot more difficult. I think those greens were a lot more nuanced. They had a lot more break. Like those putts Russell did miss, started outside the hole on the left and missed on the outside of the hole on the right. So it wasn't like he was missing an inside left putt. They bendy, if you don't have confidence, those can be tricky. And I was just looking at Max, and he seemed to strike the ball really, really nicely at the Rocket after the Thursday round. So I'm in on Max. If he's going to be under 10%, usually he's a very popular play. I'm a big fan of him. I think, like you said, he's a really down-to-earth dude. And it's so much fun to bet and root for a guy that you actually care about. Like Keegan is one of my favorite golfers. But I don't know as a human, if I'm a massive fan of Keegan Bradley, but we're splitting hairs, yeah. And then I'll just say one more thing with Seamus Power is always one of my favorite go-to guys. I think he's also been out of sight, out of mind, looking like his ownership's going to be well in the single figures, which is always nice. He is also one of these guys that before the Open, he'd finished, he made the cut at all 3 majors, and then finish inside the top 20 and the top 10 in 1 and 2 of them, which is fantastic to see. He plays really difficult golf courses really well. I think if it gets dry, I think if the conditions are tough, Seamus Power is a guy I'm going to put a lot of my chips on. And then, I'll second Aaron Wise with you there. I think from a ball striking standpoint, there's not too many that are going to be rivaling him this week, especially when that broomstick starts flying. It's fun to watch. All right, bottom of this range, we've got Mito, Keegan, Christian Bezuidenhout, going all the way down to, we've got Siwoo, Adam Hadwin, Webb Simpson, who's got really good course history here, I think. And then rounded out at the bottom with Emiliano Grillo, Brendan Steele, Adam Long, and Jason Day, who's going to be a very, very interesting play, considering he withdrew on Friday at last week's event after playing really, really good golf. His iron play has been trending in the absolute right direction. So I'm definitely going to be going there with him again. He's going to be 1%, 2%, 3% owned. Not going to put him in much more than 10% of my lineups because there is that withdrawal Jason WD kind of thing that can happen, but he provides you massive upside, and especially one of those guys that's going to be 2-3% owned. I think he's going to be a really, really nice play. So yeah, Ron, if you want to jump back to the top of the 7.5K range here, what are you eyeing out, and we can kind of chat at the bottom towards the end.
Yeah, so this is kind of my strategy once we get down here is I am searching for upside. And that's kind of the main thing I'm looking for as far as guys to pair with, guys in that 8 and 9K range. So for me, some of these guys, like a guy like Mito, okay, obviously he has that upside, but he's also not bringing that current form into it for me. So, again, like you said, Keegan, same thing. He fits the course, great ball striker. And yeah, like you said before, the putting greens here are some of the easiest on tour. One of the charts I posted on Twitter, literally every single statistic, whether you're going by putting range, 3-putt percentage is as easy here as any course on tour. Even 1-putt percentage is really high. And so, I think it kind of levels the field putting for some of these poor putters. And that's a reason why I like it. Corey Connors, even Russell Henley, that's kind of the determining factor for me is just, okay, it's a little easier this week. But as I go down, I'm kind of going down a little bit here to the 7K. Like Keith Mitchell, again, really good on Bermuda, really good off the tee. We saw some glimpses last week where he, had a lot of birdies, but he also had a lot of bogeys. But I think the upside that he brings at 7,400, really good play this week. Siwoo Kim is someone who I really loved last week, and I just, once he started kind of missing birdie putts, it's almost like he just turned it off, and of course he withdrew. I don't know how many holes he had left. I think he was coming off 2 double bogeys, and he just threw in the towel. And so, it's always hard to play him because now at this price, I think you can get away with 7,300. But again, this is the course last year where he scored a 13. He had a 13 on, I think it was the 12th hole where he literally hit like 3 or 4 balls in the water. And so you always worry about that with him. But then again, the upside that he brings here, I think 5-10%. I think if you can get to that much with him, I think he's a great player. Cameron Davis, another guy here who has started to turn it on. He's got the distance off the tee. I just think his streakiness, his ability to go on birdie runs with DraftKings scoring, of course, that matters if you can go on those birdie streaks. I really love Cameron Davis this week. Webb is another one. After last week, Webb not even making the cut at a course that he loves, he's pretty much on my blacklist, especially coming off Detroit where he could not get anything going. And so, I'm off Webb, even with the course history. But yeah, if we're going a little lower here to the bottom of the 7K, Denny McCarthy, I think is a great play. I think this is a bounce back week for him. Of course, people are going to be down on him, so I expect ownership to be low. Scott Stallings, I've got people DMing me about Scott Stallings. 130 to 1. I don't think he's going to win here, but he loves Bermuda. He, even if you look across the board here, recent form, he's 8th best in the field. Long-term form, if you're looking at 12 months, he's in the top 30. So I think Scott Stallings might be the absolute best value play down here at 7,100. Sebastian Munoz, he's a guy who, again, people are going to be angry with. I know a lot of people who had them, and he was the one guy in their lineup who kept them from a big score last week. 7,100, I think his numbers, when you look off the tee, when you look at approach, I love Munoz. And the last guy I'll say down here, Brendan Steele, horrible putter. But again, I think this is a course where he can get away with that. And so when you look at the last 36 rounds, he's actually 5th in this entire field with all these stars. He's 5th tee to green the last 36 rounds. Yeah. So, I think at 7K, I think he's a very good play. And so, I like a lot of these guys down here. I know people, I'm not playing Adam Scott. But I really like some of these guys. And I think if you target upside, That's kind of what I'm looking for here. Guys who can spike, guys who can finish top 20, even top 10. And I think a couple of these guys down here can do that this week.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think Brendan's obviously going to, him and Scott Stallings are going to be very popular. But if you find Scotty and Brendan Steele and you want to throw him in with, say, like a Justin Rose or something, just sprinkle him in with that, then you've got two guys down this range that are very cost effective, but you're basically halving Brendan Steele's ownership by just going with a Justin Rose or even a Christian Bezaidner, where a lot of people were big on last week. And now we're going to a very similar kind of a venue where you have to have accuracy off the tee. And he's a very, very good putter on all sorts of surfaces, including Bermuda grass. And I think if we're going to get Bezzy at $7,500, him and Keegan are two guys I'm definitely eyeing out in this range, big time. And Keegan's ball striking has to bounce back at some point. He had like a really, really good period of time where he was ball striking the crap out of it, not putting. And now he's been putting better and the ball striking's disappeared again. So I'm just waiting for that round where I've been on him for far too long to get off now. He does have that upside. We saw what he could do at the US Open, and he finished well at the Wells Fargo. So things like that are things I like to look for. And then Emiliano Grillo is another guy. I've actually got an outright bet on him. He's like 150 to 1 out there, which is crazy to think about. His last 3 starts have been T2, miscut T2. Now, yes, they have been at the John Deere and 3M or whatever, but that's okay. You still have to be hitting the ball well to contend in those tournaments. So I really, really like his upside here. He hits it so accurate and so far off the tee, and his proximity numbers baseline-wise are 7th from 125 to 200. So he's really, really good when it comes to iron play, and his recent iron play has been trending in the absolute right direction. So there's a lot going on for him. He's a really good putter, I think, on Bermuda versus his actual baseline, and there's a lot I like about Emiliano Grillo. So that's someone I really like at 7K flat. I'm going to be a little chalky, but definitely someone I'm looking to throw in a lineup I'm looking for some high floor stuff from a guy in the 7K range. I think he's going to be there. Next up, we've got the 6K range, which has got all sorts of people in here. Guys that have had some flashy weeks that got them into the playoffs. And it starts off with Mark Hubbard, who's a very interesting Twitter personality that even interacted with me last week. It was quite funny. He ended up drinking on Friday night so that he would think he'd missed the cut because he was on that the +1 number or -1 number. And he said, if I drink, the cut's not going to make its way back to what I'm at. But if I do drink and it does, then whatever, I'm in, So I'm not going to waste my weekend not having a fun time on Friday. I'm just going to play it that way. He didn't really play that well, so I was kind of disappointed in that. But anyway, fun little side tangent there. Mark Hubbard, Mark Leishman, Matt Kuchar, Kevin Kisner all start off in $6,900. We've got Kevin Streelman. We've got Taylor Moore, who's been playing really good golf. Tom Hoagie. Anaban Lahiri had a really good week last week. Adam Svensson in the $6,700 range. And the ownership isn't looking too crazy. For someone that's been really, really chalky in the last few weeks and a very popular play, Adam Svensson's a nice guy to go back towards. And then I'm going to save my little secret gem for once you're done with your guys, but I have a guy here that's $6,700, and I'm very, 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 very obsessed with the way his game is trending right now, and it's going to be interesting to see him play this week. So give me some of your guys in the top of the 6K range, Aaron, and then I'll get into my favorite player. Yeah.
So like you said, a little bit higher, I've got some guys down here who I think kind of give you a floor as well. And again, if you're looking for like a last guy in your lineup type thing, so Aaron Rai fits that for me. Again, world-class player. He's won multiple times on the European Tour. Really strong off the tee. He's played twice here since this has become a WGC, or when it was a WGC event. And so we're talking really strong fields, and he finished 12th and 26th. So he's got the history here to back it up. And so I think at 6,800, really good play. I think Alex Smalley, I think he gives you another really good floor here. Obviously last week playing on his home course, we saw him finish in the top 10. I think this is another week where, these greens, which is his weakness, really simple greens, Bermuda, he's kind of from the South. So I think Smalley's a great play. Brendan Todd, I think he fits that bill as well. He's talked about how much he loves this course. Tom Hoagie. So we had this discussion a few weeks ago when he kind of, should we play him, should we not? And of course, at the 3M where the ball striking mattered so much, I think it's really similar here. Like, again, I think this is just another misprice at 6,800. I think his upside is huge. This course fits what he does best, and that is pinpoint accuracy. And so he finished really good at the PGA, and then he missed 6 cuts in a row. And then again, he played really good at the 3M. Now, he gained 18 strokes ball striking combined at the PGA and the 3M when he played well. And so, again, that's what he does well. For me, he's a no-brainer at 6,800. I will be very heavy on Hoagie this week. And I think, could he miss the cut? Yes. But I think you have to take that chance on someone down here. Like you said, I love Lahiri. Again, another ball striker. And I'll go down here, Jonathan Vegas. I think off the tee, I think he's a guy who, is worth someone maybe 5% of your lineups if you're playing a lot of multi-entry contests. Matthew Neesmith, 6,500, another guy I just think is way too low.
Yes.
Another really good ball striker. He does putt his best on Bermuda, and he has been making many improvements with the putter as well. So another guy I think could have a really good week. And you want me to take it down? I got 2 more. You want me to finish up?
Go for it. Yeah,
okay.
This is the dumpster city, so I don't think we'll be getting into too many guys at the bottom.
Yeah, just 2 more here. Lee Hodges. When you look at the numbers, he's made the cut in 7 of his last 8 events. And so, again, when you figure there's only 121 guys in this field, probably with ties, you're probably going to have somewhere around 70 to 75 guys make the cut. And so, I think a guy like that who's shown some consistency at 6,400, he gained 9 strokes with his irons on approach at the 3M. I think he's a guy who can get really hot. And so, he's a guy who I think you can take a chance on here. And Hayden Buckley, again, really good ball striker, another horrible putter. I think Buckley is another one who, if you're playing a couple of those guys in the 10K range, he's a guy who I think you could sneak into a couple lineups here and hopefully get away with it.
Yes, I've got some harsh feelings towards Hayden Buckley because after the cut jumped to the lower, is it -1 or +1? I can't remember which one it was. But when it went to that, I had a lot of 6-for-6s make it through. And then I was very pumped. And then Hayden Buckley withdrew. And then I had not very many 6-for-6s. So he burnt me in a big way. The fact that you just don't show, got a wrist injury that's going to be fixed a week later, that's lies. Unless he plays really badly this week, I don't even believe it's a wrist injury. He's probably out of state on the other side of the country, already on to Memphis. So get it together, dude. If you're going to play in a tournament, stay there until the cut's been figured out. Get it together. Now, this guy that I have, it's Troy Merritt. And I don't know what it is about his game, but it has been fantastic to see. Let me find him here quickly. He's been striking the crap out of it when it comes to approach play. He's 5th in the field over the last 12 rounds and then goes to a Bermuda surface where he putts really nicely on and has got great course history here for a guy that's down in the $6,700 range. He's also very accurate off the tee. 36th in my model, long-term accuracy, and the good drives gained is actually 79th, which is not nearly as good, but that incorporates approach play. So if you think about how his approach play has been trending, and now we're cherry picking, we're picking like 12 rounds of golf, which is not a lot, but it's definitely moving in the right direction. So Troy Merritt's, like we're going to a course that's very, very dependent on approach play. I've got 45% of approach play weighted in my model, which is almost half, which is a lot. And I think it's reasonable. It's very important here. He's typically very good from 125 to 200 relative to like his actual baseline approach play. And he's been hitting it really nicely from that distance recently too. So I'm a big fan of Troy Merritt, big fan of Adam Svensson, especially if people aren't going to be loving on him like they should have over the last little while. Stuart Sink is always an interesting character who's got immense upside if he can just avoid having a catastrophic 1 or 2 bad holes. Matthew Neesmith, like you said, love to see him there. And then Lucas Glover is another guy that I'm a big fan of, just from a ball striking element. He's just one of the best out there. But putting is, him and Luke List are just terrible when it comes to that, which, whatever. If you want to dodge a putter and hope for the best, Luke List and Lucas Glover are 2 guys that you should definitely target. And then Sam Ryder is $6,000. And he's 68th in accuracy off the tee, which is about field average. but he's $6,000. So I think he's one of the best value plays down at the bottom here. He is very hit or miss, but he's really, really good from that 125 to 200 yard range. And he's also a very, very good putter on Bermuda, all things considered. So for a $6,000 guy, I'm really going to be big on Sam. He makes a lot of birdies as well. He's a very, very good birdie scorer for someone that's down in this bottom of the range here. So definitely going to be liking him a lot. And yeah, I think my favorite play in this $7,500, $8,000 range is going to be Emiliano Grillo. I might have 40 to 50% of Emiliano Grillo. I just think he's been playing so. Yeah, I'm an aggressive dude. I'll go big if I'm going to go big on him, and then I can fiddle around with get a few more top guys in there because they're not going to really be pushing 20%. So you can do 40% with JT, Cam Smith, and say Scotty, and then you can fiddle around at the bottom there. So that's what's going on there. And then I'm going to tell you my favorite play here at the top is going to be, let's go with Max Homa. I'm going to ride Max. I think he's got that upside. I think you talked me into him a little bit. Now now I'm just talking about the course history again. That gives me some scaries, but he's a new guy. Let's hopefully you can get it figured out. So who's your top of the board favorite pick, and then who's your bottom?
Yeah, on top, I'm going Zalatoris here. I know his ownership may get a little high, but I just can't look past all those things coming together for him this week. Whether the caddy change, the course history, finished 8th here last year. The ball striking is perfect, a strong field. So yeah, Willie Z is my guy up top here, and if I'm going down lower here, it's hard for me to separate these two, but I think Corey Connors at 7,600 and then Keith Mitchell at 74. I think those are really two high upside plays. Probably aren't going to win, but I think, they have the potential to get into the top 10 and can really boost your DraftKings lineup. And so those would be my two guys down at that area.
Yeah. Corey Connors at $7,600. What are we doing? He's 17th in my model. So I totally agree with you there.
And Keith Mitchell looks like he's going to be lower owned. So if you're playing the ownership, Connors will definitely be higher owned than Mitchell. But I think Mitchell's just a fabulous play as well.
Yeah. Awesome stuff. Awesome. Well, yeah, I think that's it for us. And go check out the dollar subscription for the Betsperts stuff again there. It's through the rest of the year. So we got the fall swing. We've cleared that up. That is going to be happening this year. We got all the Zozos and all those weird RSM events that happen with all the random people. Got a whole bunch of new people that will be joining tour. I think it's going to be an awesome week. Looking forward to who makes it into the playoffs and seeing if our boys can shine for us. So, anything else from your side, Ron?
No. Just go check out that customizable stat tool that we're building. It's nowhere near where you want it to be yet, but we're going to continue to make improvements there. And we've got my betting preview coming out tomorrow morning. We'll talk about some DFS stuff. First round leader, we got to get back on track with that. That's one of the toughest ones to hit, but really like looking at those numbers. So tomorrow will be a busy day putting stuff out there. Betspertsgolf.com.
Awesome stuff. Alrighty, well that concludes our PGA DFS section for this St. Jude Championship, and we'll catch you guys next week.